Mel Albin. I'm the host and the founder of the Jazz Confusion
My
Power
name
Hour.
is Dion Parson, and I'm honored to share my passion of music with you, our listening audience, through my cultural heritage.
Things can change for you too. If you want to be brand new, that is absolutely possible.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Confusion Power Hour. I'm Mel Albin. I'm the founder of the Power Hour, and I'm your host for tonight. And again, we have a wonderful guest for you tonight. I think you're really going to enjoy the show quite a bit. Let me first tell you a little bit about the Power Hour and why I created it. Obviously, FM radio has had better days, and a lot of the shows that used to be on FM radio are no longer extant. They've been taken off and they've been replaced by urban music and by internet radio and by syndication. So a lot of the jazz stations and R&B and soul stations aren't around anymore. So I created the Power Hour to bring you the wonderful music that that artists create in jazz and R&B and related genres and subgenres. And I also want you to learn the backstory on some of these people. Go get behind the mind and get to know the artist for the music that you love that they create. So the Power Hour is an extensive 1 hour interview, and you'll get to hear a lot of music and get to hear a lot of interesting discussion about the music that people create. SORC is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3 radio station. We support jazz 24/7. And we also support Black and minority micro businesses to build scale so they can get on the industry radar for finance and also ultimately create generational transfer of wealth. And that also helps support the local community. We depend on listener donations, on contributions from our sponsors, and also the contributions of the artists that we have on our show, who we mutually benefit. We help share them with a global audience, and they help support our station. So any contribution or donation that people make, remember, it's fully tax deductible. So we appreciate it always. So let's begin. The Power Hour has had over 200 amazing artists, well known and becoming well known, musicians and vocalists. Some of the artists on the Power Hour include Eric Roberson, Bob James, Mesa, Brian Culbertson, Paul Brown, Steve Davis, Felix Cavalieri, Raheem DeVaughn, Reagan Whiteside, Alex Harris, Samara Joy, Greg Adams, Tom Brown, Costella, Pieces of a Dream, Kamasi Washington, Kiko Matsui, Kim Scott, Sheryl Crow, Billy Ocean, Annie Lennox, Dwelle, Maria Antoinette, Jay Brown, Yulia, Blake Aaron, Terry Wollman, Her, Celine Johnson, Erin Stevenson, the late Bobby Caldwell, Jeff Beck, Dion Parson, Tammy McCann, Eric Burden, Kelly Finnegan, and Billy Ocean. So that should give you a wide range of the kinds of artists, well known and becoming well known, that we've had on our station. And tonight is absolutely no exception. Tonight we have a wonderful artist. As a young child, her grandmother began to share her melodies, imparting both love for her as well as a love of music. As her music appreciation grew, so did her aptitude for classical piano. She earned her bachelor's degree in music degree at Georgia State University and then embarked on her music career. Currently, she is recording her 12th studio album to be released in 2027 and with Sinanchi Records, performing shows across the U.S. She currently has 3 #1 Billboard hits from her latest album, Pieces of Me, released in 2025. She uniquely draws from her classical training to create a blend of melodic contemporary jazz and rhythmic grooves. Fans have streamed her music on Spotify to accumulate over 15 million streams on the album Stronger Now and other albums. Over recent years, audiences have enjoyed performances at Aloha Jazz Festival, Hawaii, WSFSK Music Festival in Nashville, Myron's Jazz in the Smith Center in Las Vegas, the Lyman Center in Connecticut, Berks Music Festival, Elmira Music Festival in New York, Middles G Class Festival, Sweet Lounge Atlanta, Catalina Jazz Tracks Festival, Brass City Music Festival, and City Winery, as well as 3 tours of Europe and cruise ships out of France, to name a few. In 2017, the classically trained pianist, composer, and producer, received an Emmy nomination for her acclaimed work composing for television. She was a Baldwin artist alongside the likes of Billy Joel and Bruce Hornsby. In 2019 and 2020, she was nominated for Artist of the Year by the Smooth Jazz Network alongside genre luminaries like Dave Koz and Brian Culbertson. So, with that, all that introduction, please welcome tonight's wonderful guest, CarolAlbert. Welcome, Carol.
Thanks, Mel.
I
Appreciate
hope
you
I did
having
you
me
just.
on.
I hope I did you
Oh,
justice.
yeah. Some of us like, yeah, I forgot I did that. It's
That's what
always fun to
that's what a
listen
lot.
to that.
That's what a
Sorry
lot of
about the
artists.
glare behind me with the sun, and to go down in just a second.
That's fine. So, um, let's talk a little bit about. I like to start off every show with what's cooking. What's going on with Carol the rest of this year and 2027.
Well, what's cooking right now is I've been recording. I'm working on my 12th studio album, and I'm been miking. I've been working on miking my Yamaha piano. A lot of times I've used MIDI pianos or gone into studios for acoustic pianos, but I've embarked on trying to do it myself here in my um, piano room. So that's been quite a learning curve for me. So I'm always trying to learn new things, learn new programs, learn new things about music. So I'm doing that in between some of the shows that I've done. It's summertime and doing a little bit of, get-togethers with family and that kind of stuff. So that's really kind of what's cooking here.
And next year, are you going to be touring again?
Yeah, I hope to. I've had things, inquiries. I'm doing a few more shows out, to finish the year. I'm doing a Huntsville Jazz in the Park in September the 27th. That's going to be fun. That's with a lot of my friends. I have a great band playing with me. And then a few more possibilities, inquiries, and some things for 2027. I'm going to release my new album. That's the plan in 2027 with Shawnee Records, and doing some production with Paul Brown. And I'm also a producer myself, and I produce some of my songs, independently. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope it's my best ever. And that's my goal, always to do better than before. And um, learn something new along the way.
Sounds really good. I'm sure your fans are going to be looking forward to the music you're going to be working on. So let's start off by giving everybody some background. And let's start with the obvious, your childhood. I mentioned in the introduction your grandmother that seems to have had a huge impact on your musical development. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the kind of music you had in your household, where you grew up, and your grandmother's influence?
Well, when I grew up, um, there was typically a lot of family gatherings with music, because, we didn't watch a lot of TV or anything. And my grandmother played by ear completely, and she did kind of honky tonk piano gospel music. And she had uh, been diagnosed with cancer, and when she was diagnosed, they had amputated her right arm, which was pretty devastating for her because then she couldn't play the piano anymore. So I was parts, and she played the left hand parts, and that was kind of a lingering memory that stuck with me. And sometimes it's hard to even remember that and not get teary eyed still to this day. But she was a big influence. And, we grew up in the church playing church music, grew up going to singings like in the South. you go to singings on Sunday and Sunday afternoon after church, and um, sing out of the hymn books. And so I really kind of grew up in a musical family. It was not like professional, but it was very community. Um, and that was a big part of my, earlier years when I was growing up.
What kind of music was in your household? Obviously, it was gospel, but what was it?
Gospel and country. I would say gospel and country.
Country?
That was, yeah. That was mostly what I grew up on.
So there wasn't a lot of jazz or pop or and
No,
okay. All
no,
right.
not
Well,
even
that's
not even classical. Yeah, I
not even
just,
classical. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we're gonna get. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
anyway, I did study piano, so we can,
Okay. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that, and I want to talk about obviously if there's no jazz in your household, how do you ever evolve into jazz? We'll talk about that later. Also, did you participate in music in public school at all?
well, we didn't really have we did not have a music program. When I was in high school, I was, asked to be uh, an accompanist for the chorus, the choir, and they always had me do the competitions because no one else really played the piano. So that was when I had branched into classical music, and I did, pretty well considering. I didn't have a lot of background at that point in time in classical, but I did place in the state competitions, and and did a lot of whatever they had going on, programs and um, things like that.
Well, then after high school, you went to Georgia State. Is that correct?
Yes, first year I went to University of Georgia, and I didn't even study music, and then I decided to just take some lessons, and they were like, "Oh, wow, where have you been?" And so I took a quarter in University of Georgia, and then I transferred to Georgia State and started in the music program there, and really got serious about it.
When you were at Georgia State, did you perform either at college or in other venues?
Well, we always had to perform every semester. We had juries. And so we would have to work, really, really hard and memorize, our whatever we're working on for the semester, two or three or four pieces. And then we'd have to play them for the rest of the school during quarterly and for our jury for our final exams. But in terms of performing, I didn't really perform a lot while I did play for Atlanta Ballet and played for some ballet schools just because I needed the money. And I played for churches. So, I mean, if that's a performance, but that was
That
more of
could be.
an accompanist, a need to. But I learned a lot, doing that type of work, accompanying for ballet classes and that kind of thing.
So, up through college, you really didn't do any gigging. You weren't appearing anywhere.
No.
Okay, so you were just studying being a good student.
Well, there really weren't any opportunities for that, at that point in time. I don't even know where I would have played, where would have gigged. And I didn't really do gigging, until after I graduated with my degree in performance and piano. And then after that, I was approached to do fill-ins and substitutions. The next thing I knew, I was with a duo, and that was every night of the week. And then next thing I knew, I never really had time off. I was always getting calls to either sub, and they weren't great jobs. I mean, it was always like, hey, can you play, um, an hour, before this,
And
conference, or,
what kind of music were you playing?
just popular music at the time. Mostly just whatever, yeah, I did a lot of like instrumental, like Elton John, and I did a lot of, whatever was Billy Joel. I did some the most piano oriented instrumental things. And then I'd go back and play some standards and kind of make up my own arrangements of the standards.
Okay, so you were doing arranging. We're going to get to songwriting a little bit later, but I guess I'm curious. By the time you graduated college, did you feel like music was going to be your career?
Truly, when I graduated from college, I was looking for a teaching job. That was going to be
Okay.
my career, being a music teacher. And that just didn't work out. I wasn't hired at the time, and I was passed over. Someone else got the job, and there was not any other openings. So that's when I started, gigging, and I was teaching private piano for years. I was always teaching private piano and gigging, and so I never really did go into the public schools teaching, even though I was teaching privately for a long time.
Right. Okay. Well, look, what I like to do is I want people to hear your wonderful music. So I want to play the first song of the evening for the audience. The first song I'm going to play is Seaside Story. So why don't you tell our listeners the background, to Seaside Story?
Well, Seaside Story is it starts out kind of dreamy. And I imagined, like, sitting on the coast, and, a lighthouse in the distance. And, there's a story behind all of that. And um, that was because I really like the water, even though I'm not a good swimmer and I don't, you know, go into the water. I like being by the water. And so it was just kind of a fantasy. I was imagining, you know, what kind of a romantic, again, kind of a dreamy story. Uh, and that's why I called it Seaside Story.
And when you composed it, did you compose the music first, or did you did you have lyrics, or is it strictly instrumental?
Well, it's strictly instrumental. I thought about having some, working, collaborating to do words, but uh, the way it started, I just heard this melody in my head, and I walk I have a little path. I walk in the woods, and I just kept hearing this melody over and over, and it's like I was concerned that I was like plagiarizing, because it's like this
Yeah.
sounds like something that I've heard before, and it just would not go away. And so I asked a couple of friends, like, no, we never heard that before. So that's how, the melody was first, and that's how I wrote the song, is
And who's
just
on
from
this
the
recording?
melody.
I'm sorry, who's on this recording with you?
On Seaside Story, I have Lil John Roberts on drums. I have Roberto Valley on bass. I have um, Reagan Whiteside on the flute, and I
Ah,
have Shane. Shane's last name. Thoreau. I call him Thoreau because it looks French, because I spent time in French. The way it's a French name, and then people correct. So no, it's Theriot. It's like, well, and looking at it from a French viewpoint, it's Thoreau. So playing guitar, and Huge Groove produced it and mixed it. So it was really a great collaboration.
Reagan's been on my show a couple of times. She's terrific, terrific musician too.
Right.
So okay, let's play Seaside Story for everybody, by CarolAlbert. It's such a beautiful song, Carol.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
beautiful. Do
Thank
you
you.
do all the arranging too?
Yeah, I did all of that. I wrote the composition, I arranged it, and kind of co-produced it with Vuj, but um, he did. He's like, well, if I'm going to have to, he had to really do some work on the drums and some things like that. So if I'm going to do that kind of stuff, then I need to just be produce it. And it's like, okay, fine, I don't have a problem with that.
Did he do the charting and scoring, or did you do it?
No, I did. No, I did that.
You do all that? That's wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
wonderful. It's
yeah.
a really great composition. One of the things that stands out to me, a lot of times when I have keyboardists, I won't use the word pianist, but keyboardists,
Hmm.
the keyboards don't stand on top of the music as clearly as your piano stands out. I mean, it is crystal clear. It's an excellent production, So I mean, I think it really highlights the compositional gifts that you have, because you can hear every note, sonically, it's really very well done. So,
Thank
and
you.
that which album is this from?
It's from Pieces of Me. It's my latest album. Um,
And that was recorded when?
it was recorded well, I released it in 25.
Okay.
Seaside Story was released in 24 um, as a single.
Okay. Yeah, terrific. And obviously, um, that's not gospel. So I,
No, and I don't do gospel music anymore. I could play gospel music, but
I know,
you know,
I know. So we're gonna talk a little bit about your evolution to smooth jazz, then I want to talk with you a little bit about smooth jazz as a genre today. But anyway, let me just move on so I can stick to my script here. I have a lot of things I want to ask you about. Um, how would you mark the start of your professional career? Was it a recording? Was it a performance? When did you have that aha moment when you said, "Hey, I'm good at this. I can do this."
I don't. It was never a conscious decision. It was never really a aha moment. It was the way my life has been has just evolved, and I would go from one thing to the next, and I would get an offer, I would take it, and it was never a conscious decision. And I went to Europe. I was early in my career was given an opportunity to travel, and went to Europe three separate times. Excuse me, and traveled through Sweden, Northern Europe, and Germany, and just did a lot of covers. Mostly what I did was covers at that time. And when I was in Europe the first time was when I had been composing some in high school, but it was gospel music because people wanted that. And I'd done some arranging for people for gospel music because they asked me to do that. But it was really the first time I'd really composed something that I just was inspired to compose when I was in Europe. And so I started writing because, there's a lot of, when you're traveling, there's a lot of downtime. People don't think that. But so I would get inspired by, like Sweden. I was walking around looking at different scenery and different people. And so I would be inspired to write something. And so that's when and then when I came back, I had a friend that was doing some production and recording, Herb Avery in Atlanta, and he was just starting out. And um, so he said, well, come in. And, he had a little cubby hole in a studio, and went in, and, we worked on some tunes, and I did like 8 songs, original songs with him. Well, I composed them, but he helped me to put them in arrangements and record them. And there's some that I never released, but that was when I really started writing seriously. And then I went back to Europe a couple of times, and did some more writing. And so it was never, like I said, it was never like an aha, this is what I have to do, or this is the big break of my life. It was a progression of a series of things that I'd get one opportunity, then I'd get another opportunity. I'd have um, you know, I'd go to some place, I'd go to a convention and I'd get leads, and then I would be in another path, like the New Age pathway for a while, because I started networking with different people and just kind of followed that path a little bit. And um, did two albums with a European, German label. And it wasn't really new age, it was new agey, but it had some beginnings of contemporary, jazz at that time, and actually was played on some radio stations, Smooth Jazz Chicago. Still, we still are in touch, and they play some of my first recordings. I'm still friends with those people. Um,
Did
so
you have management back then?
no,
So you were doing everything on your own?
right.
Wow. Yeah.
So
You know, yeah, that's one of the things that changed since 2000 with the decline of record labels. Nobody does A&R for artists anymore, and nobody puts them out on the road, and nobody gives them free studio time. And today's artists, while they control their product, they also have all the obligations that go with having a business, not just be able to create music, but they had to learn the business side of the industry also. I'm sure that you had to go through the same thing.
yeah, I was lucky. I did have connections with, at that time, there were just more agents. And I think there are less agents out now because it's just not
Yeah.
profitable.
Mhm.
But through my early years, and even like the traveling and cruise ships and all that, were through agencies. And I was really lucky to have those connections because that kind of filled in that gap. Th- but I always
Let's
worked, you know.
let, let's talk a little bit more since we're talking about songwriting. Um, when did you compose your first song?
When I was in the eighth grade.
Wow. Okay. And did you perform it?
I don't think so. I wrote it with another girl. We were in a singing school. It was a summer thing, and they actually still have them. It was, basically based on gospel music and four-part harmony, and learned solfege. It's all based on the do, re, mi, fa, sol. Sound of Music, solfege. And so that was part of something that we did. We wrote a song together. I still have it, but it's all four-part harmony. I am very good with four-part harmony. I studied that quite a bit. So I think that's another reason I'm very conscious of harmonies and harmonics, because I did study that quite a bit.
Okay. Well, when you start to compose a song, how do you do it? I mean, I know every songwriter does it differently, and some songwriters write down melodies, they hum them and they record them. They may have a whole repertoire and they come back to them later. What's your process for songwriting, and how often do you spend time songwriting?
Usually, if I'm going to write a song, the melody always comes first. And so with the melody becomes the chords, because I hear the structure, from my background of, like I said, the four-part harmony. So I hear the chords and the melodies together usually. And I have done songs without collaborating with other people where they bring the chord structure to me. And then it's actually harder for me to write to that because I'm so used to writing, kind of doing a rogue thing, doing my own thing with what I hear, and then the chords follow, the melodies. And I write, I'll hear something in the car, or I hear something while I'm walking. I've dreamed of songs. I've actually sat down and, as a study, written things just on demand, and that's a little harder for me. I'm a little more of an inspirational writer.
How often how many hours I don't know if it works that way for you. Do you wait till you're inspired, or do you set about deliberately to spend time composing every day?
Yeah, I'm not a very deliberate
Yeah.
composer. It would probably be nice to do that. I try to blend in my profession with my life. And, we all have a life that goes on separate from our music and
Yeah.
our art. And so, you know,
When you have a song that you've started to put together the melodies, do you have a go-to person who you play it for first and get their impression?
I'm a friend that I've known like forever. And she's always been, a really good listener. And so her name is Janice. And so she likes to listen. And we sort of started that thing. I'll send it to her and say, well, Janice, what do you think of this song? And she goes, yeah, or hey, I've listened to that over and over again. And she likes doing that. And it's always nice to get feedback, because, as artists, we're always kind of like, listen to what I did, listen to my music, listen, that is something that we do. And so it's nice to have people that are actually interested in listening, you know.
So once you have the song, what's the next step for you?
Well, then I think about the instrumentation, the arrangement, live players. There's I always say there's so many different ways a song can go. There's so many different ways that you can arrange a song. Um, and as evidenced by people, you know, taking a song and making it if it's a one thing, turn it into something else. So coming up with a style, the arrangement that I want for that song, and then kind of going through the whole process of getting the players, getting the production, and getting the right people to work with, having it mixed and mastered, and then pressed onto a CD.
Well, I'm curious, when you are composing a song, do you decide beforehand, I want to do an LP or an EP or a single, or, does it have a theme? Is it thematic if you're going to do an LP? I mean, how do you move from a single to an EP or LP?
Um, it sort of takes shape as I'm going through. Like I'll decide, what I really want to do an album, and I don't really decide the number right off the bat, but I don't really decide right away what the theme is going to be. But my albums have turned into, kind of a theme from uh, as I've uh, done different albums, and it kind of falls into place. I mean, it's not always clear, but then I kind of it works its way, and it always kind of like comes together. It's a weird thing. I guess it's an artist starting a painting, and then it just takes shape, and then it kind of just evolves into what it wants to be.
Do you have music on the shelf where that you've composed before and
Yeah,
you put songs together for an EP
yeah.
or an
I have
LP?
music on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have music on the shelf, and sometimes I look at those and think, well, maybe I'll do something with that someday. I mean, they're either not in the right
Right.
spirit of what I'm working on, or, a completely different style.
All right, let's play another song for everybody, 'cause I'm sure
Okay.
everyone's going to love to hear more of your music. I want to play Sunshine Yellow. So tell
Okay.
everybody briefly the backstory for this song.
Sunshine Yellow. I like the sun. I don't stay in the sun because I get sunburned, but I love the sun. And a lot of my songs are about the sun. And um, it just, that's another song. It just, the melody came out of nowhere. And I uh, didn't think of a title right away, but then I just happened to think about, oh, let's call it Sunshine Yellow. Peter White played the guitar on that, and huge groove mixed it for me. And he's the one that connected me with Peter White, because I didn't know how to get in touch with Peter White. And he said, "Oh, I give him a call." It's like, okay. So that just happened very kind of synchronistically. And it was it reached number one. It was very well received.
And this was from which album and when was it released?
It's from Pieces of Me. I released the single in 24 as well, and I did Sunshine Yellow early 24 and Seaside Story right before the in the holidays, and then put them on the album Pieces of Me.
Terrific. Okay, let's hear Sunshine Yellow by CarolAlbert. Uh, I love that, Carol. You know, I'm really enjoying your music tonight.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I'm sure
Thank
our
you.
audience is too. We have quite a number of listeners tonight listening to your music. So
Awesome.
let's go on because time is our enemy. We only have
Yes.
15 minutes to go.
No, no.
Um, so um, let me give you a thought question. If you could
Okay.
collaborate with any musician, vocalist, songwriter, lyricist, arranger, producer from any century, anywhere in the world, who would be number one in your bucket list? Who would you like to work with?
Um, I think Stevie Wonder would would be a really remarkable person to collaborate with.
Okay, and obviously you're a musician more than you are a lyricist. What is it about Stevie's music that you find so intriguing?
Um, it's just it just goes to another dimension. I mean, and again, his harmonies, his the way that he
Yeah,
it's all
yeah.
very well written, just but it's very natural. It's not contrived. Very meaningful. And I do write lyrics, but I just kind of focus on instrumental because it's more of a market of what I'm doing. And yeah, it's just I think it's very meaningful to people, and he just has a way of going right to the point that he's of the song that he's writing about.
You know, when he came out with an album, I think it was Harmonies in the Key of G or something like that. Melody. It was one of his first albums. Um, he had when I called to say I love you, and the harmonies in that are so stunning. You know,
Hmm.
it's when you listen to Stevie and he's singing on all his songs.
Right,
It's
right.
his music that is so phenomenal that sometimes
Hmm.
gets lost because you're listening to his vocals and his lyrics.
Right, right.
But he's a master composer. I agree with you completely. That's a good
Yeah, he
choice.
just yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He would be the one.
You know, currently you're playing smooth jazz and contemporary jazz, but I know you mentioned earlier you did some new age and contemporary instrumental. Um, and I guess it happened vicariously. Like you said, you weren't planning on it. It just went in that direction. What
Hmm.
brought you to smooth jazz?
Well, it's always kind of you get a call to do a job, and so you do the job. I just sort of moved in that direction. I've always liked, well, like listening to Stevie Wonder and so many different um, kind of the soulful R&B and blues. I've always been influenced with that, and even though I was doing New Age, I still was writing other things. Like I wrote other things when I was in Europe, kind of more of a Latin beat. I wrote a song, "Lady with Gray Hair," that's um, kind of Brazilian a little bit, and so the music just sort of like has taken its own path and sort of fallen in that direction. And when I actually took a break from the 90s, like the late 90s. I took a break from recording, and I was performing live, but I just kind of burnt out. And then I recorded some solo piano around 2007. I did two albums, but then I didn't go back to recording till like 2014. And so I was just writing different music of what I heard. And the person I was working with at the time says, "Well, I think that we should send, this is very smooth jazz. We should send it to Jason Gorov." And it's like, I didn't know who he was. I didn't really, wasn't even it was never a conscious thing. And it's like, okay,
Okay.
well, let's see if they like it. And it sort of like fit. And so that sort of gone that trajectory. And I write other things, but for the albums and for the market and for radio. there's certain things that do work better. And I think that one day I'll go back and put like a different style. Like maybe I'll do
Ah,
a.
that's what I was going to just ask you.
Oh,
Since
okay.
your migration in your musical genres was kind of serendipitous, it wasn't planned. What do you have any thoughts over the next 5 years where you might want to take your music?
Well, I'm going to keep writing whatever I hear because I can't really do anything else. I'm not a disciplined, go sit in the table and let's write a song, come out and you've got a hit. That's really never going to be me. I'm not that kind of a disciplined writer, and it's a great skill. But I am just kind of led to what I'm hearing, um, and all the songs that I really enjoy that I've been writing. But I do have some things that I wrote uh, back in the day, and I want to kind of finish that out. It's kind of a classical rock um, thing, and so I want to kind of finish that out. Maybe I call it a symphony. I wrote the first movement, and it's very orchestral, but orchestral rock with kind of the guitars and the drums and all that
It's kind of funny,
classical
but
oriented.
it's kind of interesting to me. But rock has, for the most part, disappeared, and the new rock is country. Country has
Right,
country has become country rock, and
right.
so that should be right up your alley.
I'll see where it goes, but it's like, why not? So when I get to that place that I want to revisit that, um, I'm just going to continue writing, and I don't have like a definitive. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. I find that the way my life has flowed has been, um, it kind of takes me where I need to go.
Well, as long as it's going where you want to be, that's great.
Well, truly, yes, exactly. Well, yes, that's
Well,
being
let's play
that's
the
a
next song
given.
for let's play the next song for everybody. We're running out of time.
Okay,
So let's play Vertical Horizon, and then after we
okay,
play it, you can come back and tell people a few words about how that song came about too. Okay?
okay, right.
This is Vertical Horizon by CarolAlbert. That's beautiful.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I'm enjoying all of your music tonight. I'm going to have you come back another night,
Okay.
so we can, talk some more about a lot of
Okay.
things. I wanted to ask
Sure.
you one more question, and then we'll play the last song of the evening.
Okay.
Um, if you could tell your younger self one thing that you didn't know then that you know now about your music career, what would you tell your younger self?
Be flexible. Because I think as a musician, we have to be flexible. I mean, and especially, we talked earlier about the changing, environments of music and over just since the past, even 5 years, 10 years, it's incredible. So you have to be creative, you have to be flexible. And somebody had just posted, a friend of mine, about who's very well known, Lil John Roberts. They'd done a big show and just everything went wrong, and how they really tried to just get through the show and without the audience, the big audience knowing. And you have to be very flexible, and the beat goes on. I mean, it's like if something doesn't work out, you got to go to the next thing. You can't really sit too long with failures, and you learn from failures. Um, and it's not a character defect if you fail at something, and kind of keep going. So I don't think I ever set out to be a professional musician. It just happened. And so I think that's something.
Well, the fact you didn't ever consider yourself as that you're going to end up being a professional musician is unique, because most of the artists I have, they talk about that it was like a childhood dream, and obviously that wasn't yours. But one of the things that you're kind of touching on, up until 2000, I'm just using that as a dividing line. Music industry had a structure.
Hmm.
People may not have liked it. There were gatekeepers, and it was hard to get in. But they had people who had been around the music industry for years, and they
Hmm.
understood musical taste. Right now, everything goes up streaming, and there's no moderator to say what is good quality and what isn't. So kind of let the people decide, and people aren't always that discerning. So one of the things that changed, I don't think we'll ever see it again. We can talk about, you mentioned, Elton John when you were talking about songwriting, and Billy Joel. Those were iconic
Right.
musicians. I don't think we'll ever see that again. We have one today, who just recently got married to a football player. And, other than that, name another iconic, person in the music industry. It's very tough. There's Bruno Mars, to some extent, but, it's really kind of difficult. Those icons, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Miles Davis, they're gone. We don't see that because the structure's gone. And so it does give artists some freedom, but it also is difficult because there's no standards any longer for what is quality. And that's my opinion.
Right. I think there are good, I think there are very, very gifted songwriters out there and gifted musicians.
Yes,
I think it's
yes,
harder. I think it's much harder
yes,
to get recognition.
yes.
And it's even if it's it's harder to get shows, it's harder to tour, and it's everything is just, in my opinion, humble as it may be, is harder.
Oh, it is. It is. You're absolutely right, Carol. It's hard to make a living as an artist today. It's really very difficult. Like I said, the record label used to give you studio time. They would, put
Hmm.
you on the radio. They put you on tour. And
Hmm.
you had an income, and then you made money from CD sales,
Hmm.
or cassettes, whatever it might be. Now you can stream a million streams, and you just made $8,000 on a million streams. You can't live on that. It's difficult.
Right.
So, there's talented people out there, don't get me wrong, major talent,
Right. Right.
but it's hard to break through and have the support for your career.
Right.
Right now it's what have you done lately? That's how they evaluate you. And they won't take a chance on, long-term relationship That whole record label FM relationship is gone. So, you're right. There's talented people, and it's much harder to break through. Let's play the
Right.
last song of the evening, and I'm going to have you
Okay.
back here again. Let's play City Walk, and
Okay.
then you'll tell us everybody briefly about it after we play it, and then we'll wrap
Okay.
up.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds
this is
good.
City Walk by CarolAlbert. Again, just absolutely beautiful. Um, Let me ask you a question for the audience for tonight.
Okay.
If you want our listener viewers to remember one thing tonight about your music or about you, what would that be?
I would like for them to remember that I write things that are meaningful to me and that I like to write things that are meaningful to my audience or to people that are listening that would touch them in some way and mean something to them, make them feel a certain way, make them feel happy, make them feel reflective, whatever. I would like to tap on those emotions. And that's what I think if I can do that, then I've succeeded.
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, this has been a great evening. I've enjoyed, your explanations and your discussion about how you built your music career. Please tell everybody about how they can. Excuse me.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you. Please tell everybody about how they can become a fan, how they can contact you, where they can buy your music, your social media, your website.
My website, CarolAlbertmusic.com. And that's where I'm usually posting happenings, current events, try to post my schedule that I'm playing. Haven't been as good maintaining that lately, but that's another thing to do. Um, Facebook, Carol Albert. Instagram is Carol Albert Music. Uh, at YouTube, Carol Albert Music Official. And I'm on what used to be TikTok. Now it's, uh, you know, all those things. Carol Albert Music is the way to find me. If you put that in to the search engine, then the social media will pop up.
Terrific.
And I
Well,
hope to
Carol,
see, any new listeners at shows that come up soon in the future. And I can always have people drop me notes through my website at CarolAlbertmusic.com.
well, I want you to know, Carol, tonight we've had 181,422 people tuning in globally to listen
Wow.
to you tonight.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah, yeah. This show generates big audiences because we always bring on talented people like you, and people can learn new music and buy new music for everybody. They can buy your music on Amazon and Spotify and
Right,
Apple.
right. All of it. Yeah. Hmm.
Terrific, terrific.
Yeah.
Well, Carol, I want to have you back again, and I know you
Okay.
have new
Love
music.
to.
You have new music coming out,
Right.
and maybe you can pop in
Give
and
you some
maybe we can play
teasers.
a couple of maybe it's a teasers in advance to build
Okay.
more of an audience for you and for your music.
Okay.
So
Sure. Love
yeah,
to.
if you want to hang around for a few minutes after the show, if you have time, we can chat for a few minutes. Okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, Carol, it's been a pleasure,
Okay.
and
Thank you,
and
Mel, for having me.
thank you again for being here.
Yeah.
Well, that was wonderful. That was CarolAlbert. I followed Carol for years now. She's a wonderful composer, a terrific musician. The arrangements are just perfect and letter perfect. So be sure to check out CarolAlbert and look at her music on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your recorded music. Next week, we have another great guest. We have wonderful Kathy Cousins, who's a terrific vocalist. You'll really enjoy, her music. And she's also a singer-songwriter. So be sure to tune in next week again for another special edition of the Jazz Confusion Power Hour. I'm Mel Albin, saying good night to everybody, and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
I'm Mel Albin. I'm the host and the founder of the Jazz Confusion Power
My name
Hour.
is Dion Parson, and I'm honored to share my passion of music with you, our listening audience, through my cultural heritage.
Things can change for you too. If you want to be brand new, that is absolutely possible.